to the 2020. There we go. Recording started, folks. So welcome to the 2024 Hawkesbury Meet the Council Candidates Forum. Bit of a mouthful there. My name's Tony Bosworth and I'll be your MC for the evening. Now, just a little bit about me. For those of you who don't know, I started Hawkesbury Post back about 4 years ago now, but I sold that round about almost 2 years ago, actually. And so I'm no longer connected with that. I run several regional newspapers at the moment, and I also regularly talk on ABC Radio about regional news. So I'm filling in people about what's going on there. So that's me. Now we've got 7 groups represented by their lead candidates here tonight, and they'll shortly introduce themselves. First, I'll let you know what's on the agenda for the next 2 hours. So each candidate will get 1 minute to introduce themselves. We're going to have to be pretty strict about the time. So you'll hear the bell probably every now and again because we need to get through a lot. Following that, we'll move into the public questions part of the evening. There have been over 70 questions submitted by you, the voting public. So we won't have time to ask all of them individually, with your names on. So we spent quite a few hours, more than that actually, putting them all into a spreadsheet, broken up into topics with similar questions being combined. We really want to get you as many answers as we can tonight. So we've been pretty careful with that. Each candidate has up to a minute to answer each question as it's asked. And as we're limited to 2 hours, we won't hold back on using the mute button. Now you'll notice a Q&A section to the right, I believe. And attendees and candidates are welcome to use the QA to ask and answer more questions. Please note that the Q&A will be closely monitored and moderated. So let's keep it civil, please. And so we don't have to boot anyone out of the session. We don't want to have to be doing that. Once the forum is ended, we'll be loading the video onto our forum Facebook page and YouTube channel. So please feel free to share it around before the election. And lastly, thank you all for taking the time to participate in the forum. There's been a great response. Okay, so now let's meet our candidates. And I should just say what we're doing with this first bit is it's in the order that they are on the ballot paper, okay? When we come to asking them the questions, we'll shift that around so it's not always the first person on the ballot paper doing it first. Okay, so if we could go then to Danielle Wheeler of the Greens, and Danielle, if you could sort of introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Thanks, Tony. I'm Danielle Wheeler. I'm the Greens councillor on Hawkesbury City Council. I want to begin by acknowledging that I am on Djuric land, the land of the Burrabawongal people, on land that has never been ceded, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'm from Wilberforce. I was first elected to council in 2016. I've been the chair of the Heritage Committee since then. I've achieved increased heritage funding, support for the Women's Cottage, wetlands protections, increased tree canopy, town centre upgrades, and increased community participation in council meetings. You'll know me as a hardworking and evidence-based councillor. I try to be really consultative. I collaborate well, I think, with my fellow councillors where that's possible, and my focus is always on the needs of the community. I think we're at a really pivotal time for the Hawkesbury if we don't dig deep and work on both our resilience but also our standing as a destination and work for our heritage and our environment. We will get sucked into the sprawl that is Western Sydney. Yes, and I don't think anybody wants that for us.
Excellent. All right, thanks for that. That's brilliant. Thank you. And next we've got Mary Lyons-Buckett, who's an independent. Mary, if you'd like to have a chat about yourself and the group.
Thank you, Tony. I'm Mary Lyons-Buckett. I'm an independent and have been for the past 12 years. I originally got on council because I was very concerned about the direction that of decisions that were being made in the Hawkesbury. It's such a precious place, and there was a need to fight to actually preserve some of the things that were being lost. I have a background in science, law, and I'm a mediator as well, and I try and apply those things with how I approach council, particularly around trying to find solutions to bring this community forward. I also work on research projects with the University of Sydney, and I'm studying at the University of Tasmania around disaster resilience at the moment, which I think is going to be our biggest challenge of the future. Our community is very vulnerable, and so I lead a team of community-focused independents who all come from different professional and business backgrounds, and we are people who are out in the community every day doing things that we're helping the community with. We understand all the challenges that the Hawkesbury faces, but we also really acknowledge the very precious things that we need to protect and enhance in this area. So I live in Currajong, but my team is spread right across the Hawkesbury.
Excellent, that's good, thank you. And Bob Gribbin is next. Bob, do you want to say a few words there?
Yes, you caught me off guard. I thought I was going to be number 5.
Oh, apparently number 3, but yeah. There we are.
That's all right. Yeah, my name's Bob Gribbin. I live in Oakville. I've lived here since 1986. I moved here from the inner city. I came here to be with my horses, so I'm very much into equestrian. I've been volunteering since 1988. I used to be secretary of Sydney Show Jumping Club back then, when we jumped at Skyville. I've continued to volunteer. I'm still involved in Pony Club as a zone president across all of the pony clubs in the Hawkesbury, and we go as far as La Perouse, actually, in the city. I'm on the Sports Council as a committee member to help influence sport within the Hawkesbury. We have a very big focus on that. I'm involved in Pitt Town football as competition secretary. I'm president of Rouse Hill Little Athletics, and I have a lot of interest about what's been going on at Tamplin Field and some of the mistakes that have been made there. My business background, I've spent I've been in computers for 50 years, the last 34 years with IBM. I retired last year because I turned 75.
We've got the bell ringing, sorry.
Sorry, okay, all right. But I bring a lot of business knowledge across multiple industries that can help, I believe, can help council run better.
Excellent, thank you. And I've got Angela Maguire next on the list.
I think you want Shane next, Tony.
Well, okay.
I'm reading.
All right, let's do you, because I've got you on the list. I need to stick to some form of list.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Angela Maguire, and I am an independent candidate. I ran the state election last year as an independent, and this will be my first time running for council. I'm Hawkesbury born and bred. As I said, I grew up on the western side of the river, went to school on the eastern side. My family's here. Much of what has been said about protecting this space and keeping its unique features is really important. I have a background in events management. I'm an award-winning entrepreneur. I have a bar where we pursue agritourism. I'm current president of Hawkesbury Harvest. And look, and I just want to run for council to deliver a functioning council that represents the best interests of everybody in the Hawkesbury. It's a challenge. We've got lots of challenges ahead, and I think council would benefit from people with a diversity of experience as much as possible, who are prepared to work together and try and find a way to improve outcomes for everybody, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but just getting the right things done.
Excellent, thank you for that. And next on my list here is Nathan Zamprogno.
Well, good afternoon, or good evening, I should say, and it's delightful to be with you. People know me as a lifelong Hawkesbury resident. Of course, the family are from Oakville, but I myself have lived in Oakville, Maguire Hill, North Richmond, and I'm a school teacher by vocation, and I see certain parallels, certainly in terms of dealing with a chamber of people that sometimes behave like squabbling children anyway. My record over the last 8 years includes initiatives to improve council's integrity. I moved a motion to record councillor attendance, votes, expenses. That was rescinded by the Liberal and Labor bloc. I was instrumental in saving council's heritage committee, and I think that the experiment that we ran, where we consolidated some other committees, as an abject failure and as reduced engagement and a sense of agency. I voted to save the Wilcox farm when the route of the Gross River Bridge threatened their farm. I voted against rate rises, but I recognise that the one issue that was flagged is the state of our roads. And one of the things that I hope to raise through forums like this, state of council's finances. Am I out of time?
Yeah, that's it, running out of time. But you did well there. You did well.
Thank you.
Shane Djuric.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Shane Djuric. I'm a member of the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party. They're a grassroots party made up of everyday people who come to realise that the major parties are no longer representing the views of the greater community. I'm a lifelong local. I was born in Cragnish in Windsor, and I've been a part of the community for nearly 53 years. I'm a third generation honey producer. My family's been producing honey since 1960 in a small holding in Pitttown. Last year, they were all euthanized from the varroa mite issue we had, and we decided to sell the farm, and I've started again on in the Bilbin Fruit Bowl. So these are continuing there. I've always been a part of the community in some way or other, part of community groups, trying to do better for the area I lived in and better for my community in some way that I can. The reason I put my hand up for to be political was years ago I had an accident, and it took me 6 years to learn how to walk again after some very serious spine operations, and I lost everything in my life, my home and everything. And there's politicians that wave flags on matters that are impacting me, yet when I wrote to them all, no one responded. So you very quickly learn that people get elected to suit themselves. So it became very important for me to get out there and honestly represent the views of my community and bring that to the chamber. The reason I'm putting my hand up again is because last term was a very short term due to COVID. And we're only just starting to learn what some of the issues with the council and some of the solutions to go forward. And I'd like to implement some of those solutions.
Yeah, excellent. Sorry, you've been muted there. Okay, so and the last person we got here is Eddie Dogramarchi. Do you want to have a word, Eddie?
No, we have somebody else before me, Tony.
Sorry?
We have somebody else. How many of us, have spoken?
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 7 of you.
You're using your time, Eddie.
Yeah, come on, Eddie.
Okay. Well, I'm Eddie Dogramarchi. I'm not your regular councillor, not your regular individual. Reason that, I'm running again is everyone from day one.
Well, that's no good. Eddie's frozen.
Why I'm running again? If you cannot really see it, then
no, it's okay. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay, well, this is why. That's 14% of the rate rise. That's the $40 million that this council, this antiquated management have lost, and not a single one of the councillors have supported me to fight against these people. Few words is not enough. We have hungry kids. We've got homeless people. We've got people coming to school, kids coming to school without a breakfast. And these spineless people, have spent $40 million. That's
right.
2,000. Yeah, that's okay. All right.
Right.
$2,400 per household left. That $2,400 taken from everybody's budget.
Okay. All right. We'll have to stop you there, but that's good. People they've got a good idea what you're standing for there, I think. So that's good. Okay. Let's go into the questions then, and we'll start with Danielle, and then we'll revolve through the list as we ask other questions. Now, this one is about pump out costs, which of course is dear to my heart, living in Bowen Mountain. The question is, any candidates agree with residents that pump out costs, included in rates, are out of control and unmanageable to a lot of the community? What are candidates willing to do to help fix this? So, Danielle, if you could perhaps give us your thoughts on it first.
Yeah, look, they really are an excessive cost, and it's come about through a history that I don't have time to. It would take more than 1 minute to explain why you pay so much. one of the things that I have explored, and I couldn't get sufficient support in the previous council, was a system where council helps people convert across to on-site or community-based systems that similar to the system that Michael Mobbs uses in the Sustainable House, if people are aware of that. So they're much more sophisticated than an EnviroCycle. They use far less water and far less electricity, and they give you your water back to use on things. He uses his to wash his clothes. You know, if you don't want to go that far, you don't need to, but it would certainly give you water back for bushfire mitigation and for your garden, and would save people lugging so much water up the hill to then have it sucked into a truck and carted back down the hill, whilst paying, you know, thousands each year to do. It's not sustainable. You know, we've seen news reports of how it's a shocking thing that it's happening around the new development in Appin, and they expect that to go on for 4 years, and that's considered to be appalling. And yet it seems to be fine for that to happen for 20 years in Bowen Mountain and Friends Reach and Currajong and Ebenezer. Yeah,
fair enough. Sorry, that's great. That's really good. It's an important subject, this, as we know, for a lot of people. So, Mary Lyons-Buckett, what do you think about this?
Well, I've thought about it a lot, and I've advocated for a long, long time. What I have done is, when I was the mayor, I officially asked Sydney Water about giving the subsidy to the people who were paying sullage, and that was denied. I've had that officially asked a number of times. I've also brought a number of motions to the council chamber about having a public meeting with the people of Bowen Mountain, because I believe that we need to have them understand and commit to how they think going forward is. And it's a bit of a vexed issue, because not everyone's on pump out. Some people are on EnviroCycle and they don't particularly care. But I live in Currajong, and there's pump out in Currajong as well. We don't have it, but other people do. Aside from the dangers around the trucks and the unsustainability of it into the future, with an annual increase of around 10%, I have been fighting very hard on this issue. And like Danielle, I have called for solutions either around retrofitting houses. I'm sure there's a solution in having some sort of larger holding tank or mini sewer system on the mountain, and it's something I specifically have campaigned on and will continue to. And I actually went up to Bowen Mountain a couple of weeks ago and invited people to come and speak about it as well.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thank you. No, that's good. Thank you very much. Bob Gribbin, what do you think about this? You know, it is a problem, obviously, for people. I don't want to take up too much time, because we'll always be short of time, but given that I know how pump out affects people personally, it is a real major problem. It's the cost of it as much as anything. What would you do about it, Bob?
Oh, firstly, I'm a £10 POM, and the first house we moved into in 1957, we had a man come and carry a black can out and put it on a truck every week. So I do feel for the people and what they're going through. But my thoughts, what I've been thinking of, is around the EnviroCycle and what can be done to put some sort of a mini sewerage system in there. Or can it all drain down into a common tank and have one pump out point, or fewer pump out points? But again, not being involved and not on council yet, I don't have the knowledge and the background to look at it. But there has to be some innovative way that we can look at improving the situation for those people. I mean, it's 1924. It's not 1957.
2024.
2024. Sorry, 2024.
But yes, that's absolutely right. Okay, so Angela Maguire, what do you think about it? What would you do about it? That's really the question. What do we do about it?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. And I think I'm in a similar position to Bob, in that, having not been on council, I wouldn't pretend to know the issues. However, I have lived on Bowen Mountain and have had my street blocked whilst my, my children refer to as the poo truck came and did its job, and I can't get out of my driveway for half an hour. So, I very much know that as a personal experience. I think fundamentally it's accepting that there has to be a better solution. Like, it is not sustainable. Diesel costs alone, I just, you hear them come up the road, the traffic, it's not sustainable financially for households. We know financial pressure. And I just think that, we live in a society and a community, and we need to work together, and just saying it's your problem is not good enough, not for something of this nature. So I'm very much open to learning about how it can be fixed, but very much based on the assumption that it can and should be dealt with.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Nathan, what would you say about this?
it's an invidious situation that's arisen from the opposite of there being an economy of scale. I mean, there were certain economies of scale when lots of people were on pump out. And then we came up with this brainwave, the 3-town sewage scheme, and the number of people requiring pump out would decreased and decreased, which meant that those costs weren't being shared. I agree with Danielle. I mean, you know, if we're not going to be able to get a subsidy like many other LGAs do, including mountains, for their pump out costs, and I agreed with Mary on that particular point, but we're getting nowhere, then the only solution is to move people away from this expensive and unsustainable scheme and onto something that's more sustainable, whether they're envirocycles or community shared schemes or otherwise. Now, council has a role to play in that.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just an invidious situation that we put ourselves in. I don't see there being much appetite for there being a further expansion of plumbed in sewage, and there are some areas that's simply commercially not, or from an engineering perspective, not viable. So it's a bugbear. I sympathise with the approximately, I think it's 800 odd users still stuck on this antiquated system. And you know, the good news is that there are now new technologies that we can move people to, but just like there are incentives to get people onto solar, we need to have similar incentives to get people onto more affordable and sustainable solutions.
Fair enough. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Shane, could you give us your thoughts on it? Shane.
You're on mute, Shane.
Apologies. Yeah,
it's all right. Everybody does it.
I want to start similarly like Nathan, where it's a dying thing and less people are on pump out all the time. So there's increasing costs for that. We're also dealing with stagflation at the moment through the rampant expansion of money supply from the federal government. Cost of living expenses are going through the roof. So it's something that's going to be problematic for a while yet. But I think the way forward is we're just starting to bounce around some ideas before the end of council. Our biggest problem is we had a very combative council. And we need to work together. Outside of arguing and debating in the chamber, we need to get together so we can deliver for the community. And I think that's the way forward for a start. We need to start working together for solutions on these sorts of things.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks. And Eddie, I know you've asked people in Bowen Mountain what they think about it. I think we already know the answer to that. But tell me what you think.
Well, the number it was there before I joined, and they've done nothing. They've done absolutely nothing to assist these people. And as a matter of fact, maybe going back, so many years, why on earth, these people, they allow the current residents to build their houses going back 10, 20, 30, 40 years, knowing that, they are not going to have some kind of a connection to the mains. This is what it is. It's like, if I'm asking you or giving you an example, you wouldn't bet a donkey on, in Melbourne Cup. And this is the council. Like I said, they have absolutely no idea. They have no heart. Maybe not a single one of the management have actually been in Bowen Mountain, touch the door or, ask the questions, what would, could we do? What's your problem? How could we work together to get this thing sorted out? But like I said, I'm blaming the current management.
Okay, but what's the solution? That's what people want to hear.
Well, the solution, like, we are not living in 10, 20, 30 or 50 years. Now we've got the technology. Now we can utilize what we know about this instead of, sitting in, behind their chairs and just, gluing their bums to the chairs. Go to Europe, go to America, go to Israel, see what they are doing. I was there about, 7, 8 months ago. Things that, they've done is incredible. On top of the mountains, they built, these solar.
Okay, there we go. The mute button has come into use there. All right, sorry about that. Let's move on to the next one then. Now, this one is about flood building.
Yeah, that's
this
okay.
one, right, sorry. Yeah, this one's about flood building heights. We'll start with Mary Lyons-Buckett on this one. Do you think all development below the PMF, so for people who don't know, that's the probable maximum flood height, I believe, do you believe that they should be halted until the risks associated with adequate evaluation and increased speed and volume of overland flows are addressed? Which is a little bit wordy, isn't it? But what do you think about the developments below that level? Should they go ahead? What should happen?
Could that just, before my minute starts, can you just clarify, is that evaluation or evacuation?
Well, it says evaluation. It must be evacuation. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
It must be evacuation. Sorry.
Yeah.
A journalist should have spotted that. Anyway.
Okay. I think this is really one of the biggest problems that we face into the future, because what has not happened in the past, when the Resilient Valleys flood study was released, we never saw the regional land use study come out at the time as it was promised. It was promised in 2018. The previous government did not ever complete it. The current state government has not released it as such. So we've had new flood studies at a local and a state level, and we're going to have to implement that into what we already have in our LEP, which is another thing which is not complete either. So we're really in a bad position in terms of making any decisions around flood-related planning. Our evacuation routes are inadequate. Again, something we were working on the previous floodplain risk management committee, which was disbanded by the Liberal and Labor Party councillors, was that we were really working hard on getting the information around evacuation routes. They are not secure. We need to be able to get people out. In terms of, I think the question said at first, should we stop any development until we've got it certain, we're certain about it? I think we definitely need to take our time before we release any more land to be developed until we fully understand the situation.
Excellent. Thank you for that. That's good. It is a very complicated and dense situation, I guess. There's a lot of moving parts there, aren't there? So Bob Gribbin, if you could give us your thoughts on this, then do you think that development below the PMF should be halted until we know about adequate evacuation and that's been planned properly?
It's a hard one to get your mind around, because it really, the people who want to build there have to understand the risks of building there. They're not going to get insurance. Right? So they have to be made aware of all of the risks. Should we let them if they want to take the risk? Probably not, if it's going to endanger people, endanger lives, having to rescue them when they get themselves caught. But we have to have all the infrastructure in place to support the floods. To me, evacuation routes are a critical infrastructure, and they shouldn't fail, which I think a number of them have done in the past. We've just got to get our act together and get everything sorted out and understand really what the problems are. I don't fully understand. I know that I've been through a number of floods here. I know the water comes up. You know it's going to come up. You know how high it's going to come up. So it shouldn't be a surprise. But we need to plan around that, and we need to look at the opportunities that are there to reduce the amount of flooding that we have.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, that's good. Thank you. And Angela Maguire, what are your thoughts on this?
Fundamentally, we live on a floodplain, and that needs to be at the absolute front and centre of anything we do when it comes to land release, planning, usage, all those things. So when you accept that we're on a floodplain, you need to have the data and the information to be able to make the right decisions. We find it hard to build or develop, I think, appropriately on areas in the community that don't flood without proper infrastructure, without the proper bridges, without roads, without emergency services. And when we create planning rules and laws, we're not doing it just for tomorrow or the year after. These are people who will make homes potentially in areas that will become the problems or potential problems of future generations and people further down the track. And so what might be a short-term gain around the base around rates or other perceived advantages are potential costs for those in the future when people do need to be rescued, when we have an unviable private or privately held insurance scheme now, where people are talking about the risk is such that insurance as it currently exists may not exist that much in 5, 10, 20 years time. So we need to have all the information. As Mary says, we don't have it, and once we've got it, we need to make decisions that are sensible for now and into the future.
Excellent, that's good. Thank you. Super, that's good. Nathan Zamprogno, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, nobody's bothered to cite the relevant data so far, so let me do that for you. The current 1 in 100 limit at Windsor is 17.3 metres. For historical reasons, there are over 5,500 houses on the Hawkesbury and Nepean floodplain that were built below that before there was any such thing as a flood height control. We were recently showed a document that suggested that maybe we should raise the floor height for residential construction to the 1 in 200. That would be 18.7 metres in Windsor. And, you know, if you look at the number of people that would be affected by that, a 1 in 100 flood would require the evacuation of about 28,000 people. To evacuate for a 1 in 200 flood, it would double to about 48,000, nearly 50,000 people that would need to be evacuated. And of course, even if there isn't such a flood, considering that it's such a rare event, that signal that, you know, this is a flood area sends the most incredibly expensive signal to insurers, and then find people simply can't afford insurance on their houses, and they would be left ruined because of their inability to get insurance. So this is an intractable issue, and we get no help from the state or federal government.
Sorry. Look, that's interesting as well. Yeah, I think the thing is, to me, is evacuation routes. You know, that's something that needs to be really sorted out. Obviously, when you're talking about the numbers there, Eddie, what do you think about this? I mean, do you think development should be halted below that level? What do you think should happen, or should evacuation routes be top of the list?
Like I said, I'm a professional salesman. I've been in this business for over 40 years. What they are doing, like I said, you just cannot pick a brain surgeon and tell him, you know, to operate someone's eye, or a brain surgeon that going behind the counter and start serving a coffee that he doesn't know which coffee bean comes from which country. Evacuation routes you are talking about, so out of time. Floods, they lost the key behind where I live at Pitttown. They lost the key. They didn't know what to do with it, and they couldn't find the key. They had to bring a bulldozer, you know, to kick the door and break the lock. This is how much they are behind time. These people, instead of, you know, sitting at home or getting up 9 o'clock and looking at their watches and what time to go home, go to Europe, go to see, you know, what happened in Holland, go to see other countries, what they have done. They have absolutely no idea, no plan.
We got a bell there again. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks for that, Eddie. That's good. And Danielle, if you could give us your thoughts on this, that'd be great.
Thanks, Tony. Look, this is a really complex issue. It's also a really important issue. There's several things going on here. Mary referred to the regional land use study. The other thing that's missing still is the overland flow study. So we don't actually know. We keep being reassured by the state government that all the development they've packed onto, excuse me, the South Creek floodplain and the areas adjacent to the Hawkesbury floodplain have made no difference. As anyone will tell you, we've never seen floods behave like they have. It would appear to locals that has definitely made a difference. The evacuation routes are pivotal. We know that, and we've been told by the Reconstruction Authority, that it's currently impossible in a very large flood to safely evacuate everyone who lives on the floodplain. So it doesn't matter. The only thing that changes is who drowns based in their modelling. That's something that elected representatives who make planning decisions and planning recommendations have to keep at the front of our minds all the time. We're playing with people's lives and the lives, as Bob mentioned, of the people who attempt to save them. There's also the issue of shelter in place, and it frequently appears like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing as far as service providers go. So we know that in a flood lower than a 1 in 100 flood, that all of the Hawkesbury will lose power. Which also, of course, means internet and phone for many people. And everyone west of the river, it means sewer, and for many people.
Sorry, we're getting a bell, I'm afraid. Sorry. Honestly, it's very interesting what everybody is saying. I know we need to cut things a bit short there, which is a shame, but there we are. We've got to get through things. We'll go on to the next question. And Bob Gribbin, if we could ask you this one first. This is about agricultural lands. And the question is, what would you do to safeguard agricultural land and activities and avoid development and fragmentation of Hawkesbury agricultural lands and environmental lands. So what would you do to safeguard them? What would you do to avoid development on them and therefore fragmentation? So Bob, what do you think about that?
I think a lot about that one. I mean, one of the big concerns is that if we do nothing, the state government will come along and tell us what to do. So we have to have a plan in place now that puts the decisions in place that we want for the Hawkesbury.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in Oakville. I'm right next to Box Hill. A lot of people would like to see Box Hill keep moving to the river. Sorry, not interested. So we need to do something on that land to maybe divide it into 1 acre blocks that become self-sustainable with EnviroCycle, so we don't have to put sewerage in. Right? And when we get to the bigger areas, the farmlands, we have to look at what we can do to protect them and what we can do to manage it and protect them from the development and put things in place now before it gets shoved down our throat.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So Angela, what do you think about this?
Well, as somebody who lives on a working family farm and worked on said family farm for many summers, this is an issue that's really close to my heart. And whilst I can talk about the amazing aspects of having grown up on a farm, the lessons you learn and the other lessons you wish you hadn't learnt and various bits and pieces, when you have a capital asset that is worth a lot of money and is very attractive, and you don't necessarily want to subdivide it, but you still need to make money to be able to stay and look after the land, we need to think about how land usage, what do we do with it? How can we be more creative with what we do? If it's not traditional farming, because a lot of the traditional farming doesn't work anymore, that's not appropriate. So agritourism is an obvious one. But one of the things I think we need to pursue and it's not so much local council, but we could use it as a starting point for broader conversations, is how we actually let people use the land who can't necessarily afford to buy have millions of dollars. They don't inherit a block of land, but they're wonderful farmers and they want to farm. So how do we work with communities to make those things happen and to think about how land usage preserves our agricultural way of life, that so many people find attractive, but people still need to earn an income and earn a living.
Yeah, good. Thank you. That's great. Nathan, what do you think about the agricultural situation?
Well, I've gone on about this for years and years. I mean, figures obtained said that Western Sydney lost another 9% of its arable agricultural land to development just in the 5 years to 2021, to cite that I recall. And the things that we can do are to stand by the residential land strategy that we already have. Council has a residential land strategy where we meet the targets that have been put on us by the state government. I mean, the development in Vineyard Stage 1 was foisted upon us and we had no say in it, and it's costing us an absolute fortune to develop land. We've got development happening at Jacaranda, Glossodia, Pitttown, Redbank, and like this more than adequately fulfills our housing targets. What we can do in some other areas is to have a more enlightened policy concerning granny flats, secondary dwellings, detached dual occupancies that fill that gap, that allows a certain organic growth in the population without subdivision, because subdivision is death.
Yeah, you'll find that will come up a bit. I'll just flag that about dual occupancy. So that will come up soon in one of the questions. Thanks for that, Nathan. Now, Shane, I think I missed you unfortunately in the last question, so maybe if you could cover both of them and you'll get 2 minutes for this. So firstly, that thing about flood building heights, for example, if you could give us a bit of your thoughts about that and evacuation routes, but also on the agricultural lands as well, because I guess that's kind of linked in some ways, with flood damage and things like that.
Yeah, I think they're semi-linked. First of all, I'm against any subdivision on floodplain until we know what we're going and what we need. We've got no infrastructure. I mean, the government doesn't. They're still trying to duplicate North Richmond Bridge. I mean, it's not going to do anything for traffic out of the township. It's not going to be flood-free access. They've got no vision, no foresight. So I'm against subdeveloping on the floodplain. There are homes already on the floodplain. They need to do some sort of work to their homes at times. And I am for a managed process if council help them to appropriately do minor development if they need to do things to their homes. So, but I think council needs to manage it going forward there. But as far as subdividing farming land, the only one seems to be subdividing farming land are people that are land banking across the river, and I'm absolutely against it. But I am for greater rights for the individual homeowner. Any farming development, I think at the moment is mostly to keep them relevant and sustainable going forward in today's economic situation. And they're trying to implement sustainable farming practices. So some development there on farming land is needed. And I'm also pro greater rights for the individual homeowner. Like people want to put in a granny flat to house their parents, that sort of stuff, when they're getting to that stage of life where they can no longer individually live on their own. So to a certain degree, greater rights for the individual homeowner, mass development.
30 seconds left, Shane.
Yep, mass development I'm against. Thank you.
There we go. Angie's on the clock as well there. There you go. Thanks for that. That's good. So Eddie, can you give us your thoughts on this? What would you do to safeguard agricultural land?
Well, there's a saying something in English language, horses for courses. Who made all these decisions? The levels going up, and these bureaucrats, antiquated bureaucrats, state, federal, and especially the local ones.
Okay, but what would you do about it? What would you do to safeguard agriculture?
Well, like I said, I mean, who are we to make a decision on behalf of the farmers? Why don't we get the farmers, who are going to be affected on this one? Like I said, I mean, you are bringing, these bureaucrats, not a single one of them have been lived in this area, and not a single one of them have suffered, the floods or whatever it is. Just bring these farmers and not in the committees and subcommittees, another meeting after another one. Just bring these people and ask them, what they think about it, and sit down and get this thing, going, instead of, meeting after meeting. Just be practical. That's what I'm trying to do.
Right. Excellent. That's good. Now, okay. So Danielle, could you give us your thoughts on this?
Sure. So I'm completely against any further subdivision of agricultural land in the Hawkesbury. This is a floodplain, and the floodplain is great for growing food. It's also great as a ring around the Hawkesbury to prevent further urban sprawl, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about high quality developments for people within the Hawkesbury. We can meet our housing targets with infill development in areas that we already have developed, that are already lacking basic services, as we've heard from Bowen Mountain, like sewer. We've got really poor transport, really very, very poor public transport. We're already at a pinch point in the Hawkesbury. This is not the place to be squeezing in more so-called affordable housing for the state government's whims. How do we prevent that? With really, really strong planning documents. And we saw the current term of council, the major parties, the Labor and Liberal parties, and excuse me, and their supporters on this current council stop the passage of council's local environment plan that determines where you can build housing in the Hawkesbury. They took out the views and vistas protections that protect agricultural land, that protect the rolling hills through Currajong and Kermond, and opened it up for development. They've left us really, really vulnerable.
Okay, so sorry, we're having to cut you off there again. Mary Lyons-Buckett, what do you think about this agricultural safeguarding land?
Thank you, Tony. And I will address agricultural land, not rural land, because rural land is more broad than agricultural land. Agricultural land is just so crucial for our future. And I don't think people realise that the challenges that are going to come to us around food and water security are very real, and they are going to come up before we know it, particularly with the changing climate. But the development juggernaut that's coming towards us from within the city out to the peri-urban fringe is actually rolling through and taking really valuable farmland, whether that's for livestock or whether that's for crop growing or whatever. So as Angela alluded to, there's some new additional uses going into agritourism, which means that a farm can have an additional economic activity occurring on it. And that's a good thing. We just need management around numbers of people attending and so on. The other thing is that we actually built this nation on the back of the farmers who did so much to make it so prosperous. And I don't think that there's it doesn't equate to the value that we place on farming. And these people are challenged when land values adjacent to growth areas become so high that to run a farm versus sell out to a developer becomes a really an economic question. And I think that's most unfortunate that we don't value it. The other
Sorry, we're I know. It's beating the clock. It's hard to do. Now, I sometimes lose track with this, so just correct me if I'm wrong. I think the next question, Angela Maguire will be answering first. Does that make sense? Right, good stuff. So, okay. Will you commit to ensuring the koala plan of management is completed quickly in the new term of council? This one, as we know, has been deferred to the new council. So,
no,
Angela,
I'm already letting them like.
Hello, Ange.
Angela, are you? Yeah,
Yes.
Can you give us your thoughts on it?
Yeah, look, I watched this as a citizen, as a resident,
Yeah.
and as I understood, I think the fee was about $180,000, and that we were the only peri-urban council to not have a koala plan of management, and which just seems outrageous. So again, when I think of preservation and conservation and economy, if we have one of the most genetically diverse koala populations in the country, on the doorstep of Sydney. Western Sydney Airport is about to open as a way of preserving and attracting and conserving what we have. I will absolutely be doing my best to get a koala plan of management happening. Now, I don't know how quickly that will happen because I don't know who completes them and what their workload is, but I will certainly push for one to take place.
That's good. Thanks for that. Nathan, we'll go to you next. But firstly, can I just say, anybody who's watching, you can put questions in Q&A. So just, go for it and put some questions in there, and then the candidates can hopefully answer some of those. So Nathan, what do you reckon about this then? Are you committing to ensuring the koala plan of management is completed quickly?
I was proud to support the call for more funding for a koala plan of management, and I'll repeat a phrase that I say in this and other issues. What we can't measure, we can't govern, we can't administrate, we can't evaluate the impact. We can't evaluate the impact of the Rural Boundary Clearing Code unless there's a cop on the beat that is able to just simply measure the changes to our tree cover. We don't know what the impact of our land clearing practices are unless we know where koala habitats are. And unlike some of my colleagues in the chamber who think of this as a stunt, which I thought was a very disrespectful way to refer to this debate, this is, we have a unique responsibility in one of, the richest habitats that's available in the Sydney peri-urban area to properly fund this. It's a no-brainer, and that's as much as I need to say on this.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. That's good. Shane Djuric, would you commit to the koala management plan?
Yeah, I'm committed. I've been committed thus far. I helped this section of the chamber that tried to push it through. Everyone loves the koala. We've got to do what we can to look after them, and it's got greater benefits as well. I mean, we're going to get it once we have the mapping. We'll have appropriate people moving into the area that wants that eco lifestyle and contribute to looking after koalas, and it's good all round. Yeah. Yeah, good. Thank you, Eddie Zamprogno. Are you a fan of the koalas and the plan of management?
Of course, I love them. As a matter of fact, they will remember that during the debate when these people, when they asked for money, I, as a matter of fact, had a go at the management. I said, you made a big mess. You lost $40 million and then secretly borrowed $32.5 million. Why don't you borrow a couple of more $1 million and give, to these people? And if they are taking the responsibility, let them run, what they want to do. It put the responsibility on the.
You keep freezing up
the koalas.
Yeah,
no problems at all.
Right. So you would support this, would you?
100%. 100%.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Danielle, what would be your thoughts on this?
Well, I brought the notice of motion to council in the last council meeting, which was really disrespectfully referred to and has been referred to following that meeting as a stunt. It was a petition from the Hawkesbury Environment Network. I think that when there's now 1,000 signatures on that petition. When that many people ask us to develop something, I think we need to stop and listen. We don't get a lot of petitions. We don't get a lot of people coming to us with that. This is an umbrella species. So basically, if you protect the koala, you protect everything else. It also protects against clearing under the Rural Boundary Clearing Code, which this council bent over backwards to opt into. The only council with who opted in, and the only council without a koala plan of management, which is really appalling. It's a core responsibility of council to protect the environment, and it's not even expensive. I really don't understand the opposition to it.
Yes, I was going to ask that, but I don't think we've got anybody here that is opposed to it by the sounds of it. So, Mary Lyons-Buckett, what do you think?
Well, of course, yes, I fully support it, of course, and I have for some time, and it's come up periodically. And every time we do that, there seems to be some strange resistance to actually proceeding and committing to the funding. In terms of petitions coming to council, we listen to the people, we represent the people. That's what we're doing there. It's not just about what 12 people think or what their major political party may think of it. It's what we think and what we bring from the people. So that needs to translate into commitments to doing things. The fact that it was deferred because someone said time is of the essence is actually quite mind-blowing. I just think that it's insulting to the people who really care about this issue. And as Danielle just said, we've had so many losses of our koala population through natural disasters, through land clearing, especially the Rural Boundary Clearing Code. We need to avoid loss of habitat. We need to avoid fragmentation of corridors to allow the wildlife to move freely. And that's for their breeding cycles and for all sorts of things. So we're seeing a greater push of wildlife out of their original habitats, perhaps. And so we have to support what we have left, which is quite a bit of koala habitat. And without the mapping and without the plan of management, we can't enforce our development.
Yeah, that's good. Excellent. You got the point across there. Well, that's good. Bob Gribbin, what do you think?
Yeah, I actually had an email from Hen asking me what I would do. I was in council chamber for the koala management plan, and I wrote back to them and said, I don't know what it is. Please tell me what it is you're asking for. Also send me the business case that you've gone forward with and what the outcomes you plan to get out of it. That would be my approach to it. Right. They wrote back to me and said, well, the state government paid the first part. We want to do the second part. They didn't really tell me anything. So I wrote back to them and said, well, basically what you're asking for is a bag full of money. I don't know how much money you're asking for. Council doesn't have any money. Therefore, I don't know what my answer will be. But now that I've heard it's only $180,000, I don't see what the problem is.
No, okay, that's good. Thanks. Right, that's good. Now, Nathan, we're going to start with you with the next one now. I think that's right. Do correct me if I'm wrong. It's more complicated than you realise.
Happy to field any question.
Okay, all good. So, okay, the next one then is quite a straightforward one, I believe. Would you support the reintroduction of a youth council in the Hawkesbury?
Well, that question could have been tailored for me because I was the person who noticed that council had previously given an undertaking to hold a youth summit every 2 years. Then COVID came along and we dropped the ball very badly. And there are a number of documents that refer to the work that was done at the previous youth council that was held all the way back in, I think it was like 2019 or 2018 or something like that. And I was the person who moved the notice of motion that we hold a youth summit in the second half of this year. That money is now budgeted. It's happening in November, venue to be advised. I was actually at a local school today. I was at Arndell School talking to the local students about the fact that there would be a youth summit. And listening to our young people is a really, really, really important thing. I say that as a school teacher. I was with students today who had fantastic ideas about events and facilities that we need in this area. Things to provide opportunities for a social outlet, to provide them a safe space, to discuss mental health issues. And, you know, I will always be a trenchant advocate for that. And the good news is that as a result of my advocacy, that is going to be happening later this year. And there is a commitment for council to do this every 2 years.
All right, the bell's going, bell's going. That's good.
They've muted Tony.
Tony, you've managed to mute yourself.
How did that happen? I'm just sitting here. Good Lord. Like
No,
I say,
no respect from anybody.
like I say, AI.
Moderator
it's not-
fault, sorry.
It's not going to take over the world, is it? Let's face it. Right. Okay. So, Shane Djuric, what do you think about that? Would you support the reintroduction of a youth council in Hawkesbury? Where's Shane
There is.
now? No, we can't hear him. Okay. We'll come back to Shane then. Eddie, what would you say about this? Are you going to support the reintroduction of a youth council?
Of course, I certainly will. They are the next generation, aren't they? We have to listen, we have to act, and we have to do what they might be thinking for the future. But only one condition, providing we don't start, some kind of committees and then subcommittees, and listen to these people, send them letters, and get back to them, and feedbacks, and that's kind of rubbish, that kind of bureaucracy, that sort of things. As long as we don't have that sort of things, as long as we have the shortcut, direct to the point, what they want, and bring them in. And why 2 years? Why not make it every year, so we can listen, so we can act on their requirements, what they want to do, and what they want us to do. Yes, I will support.
Excellent. That's good. Thank you. Danielle, would you be supporting this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'd also like to introduce or create a youth consultation and participation strategy along with the Youth Council, so that young people have an opportunity to directly influence the decisions that impact them, and ensure that the Hawkesbury is built with future generations in mind, and particularly with intergenerational equity in mind. It's great for us to be making decisions that are good for us, or even good for what we think for our kids. But what we think for our kids isn't necessarily what our kids think either. We'd also like to reinstate council committees and make sure that there are young people representative on all those committees as well, because they raise very different and often very enlightened issues. Young people are really, really across a lot of issues, and very well educated. We also would like to see dedicated youth spaces created for people, so that they have safe places to socialise, organise activities and congregate.
That's good. Excellent. Thank you. That's good. And Mary Lyons-Buckett, would you commit to it?
Of course I would. And the word that's been used is a youth council, which is very different from a youth summit. So I think the youth summit proceeding will be a wonderful thing, and that gives us various data around what youth want and what's happening. But there is a program called the Young Mayors Program, which I would love to see introduced into our council, which has most recently happened in Wollongong Council and a number of other councils. And it's actually a replicate sort of council of young people, which means that they actually go through an election, and then they are consulted and like an advisory group to the actual functioning council. And I think that it would be really great to see that. As Danielle says, we've got an obligation under intergenerational equity to ensure that our children have a really bright future, and that it's based on what they see as the issues for them in the future. And that when we talk about things like agricultural land and so on, that's all part of it. It all ties in. It's an integral part of our decision making to have the voice of youth represented, whether that's really regularly or whether that's periodically through a youth summit. But I certainly support it wholeheartedly.
Excellent. That's good. Thank you. Bob Gribbin, would you be supporting reintroduction of a youth council?
Absolutely. Anything that gets the youth, the kids, in a room together, face to face, so they're not doing it through electronic media, has to be a good thing. And to help get them back out into the community, talking to people face to face, has to be a good thing. So absolutely, yes.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks. yes, it would be a brave person who said no, I think, to this one. So no, that's good. Angela, what are your thoughts on it?
Thanks, Tony. Yes, well, as somebody who was actually on the original Hawkesbury Action for Youth back in 1992, I'm sure I've got a dodgy flyer here somewhere. And that was actually how I first learned how to take meeting minutes. So, you know, these skills, they translate, they go across all parts. Look, I think it's still pretty much the same bus lines and services that my kids used that were here when I was growing up their age, and that's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
The other thing, and so transportation is absolutely key. Access, the ability to actually get around, to not have to rely on a car. You know, we know all of the potential issues associated with that, but it's also the access and just how much they cost to run, and there's the plethora of issues that go with it. So no, look, I would wholeheartedly support that, and I think it's and also wholeheartedly support a meaningful way of having their contributions fed into the decision-making process. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because that's often kind of overlooked, I think. So yeah, good, thank you. Shane, are you there still?
Yeah, sorry, my screen dropped out before.
No, that's all right. One of these things. So let's just briefly go back then to, this is a fairly simple one, I think. Will you commit to ensuring the koala plan of management is completed quickly in new term of council? Because I think that's the one we missed with you.
No, I got that one.
Oh, sorry.
So
okay,
I'm up to the youth.
Okay, sorry. Oh, what am I doing? Yes.
Yep.
So reintroduction of a youth council in the Hawkesbury. So that's something what you'd like to see?
Yeah, I'm very supportive. I mean, they want to contribute, they've got a voice, and it should be supported.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. Oh, I've kind of lost myself here now. Who's next? I thought you would be next. Okay, so let's start. Look, let's start with Eddie, because you've all done the same number at the moment. So Eddie, with this next one, what do you see, and just try and be real specific with it, I think, what do you see as the priorities for the Hawkesbury community for the next term of council?
Didn't come through, didn't hear the first part. Can you repeat it, please?
Okay, yeah. What do you see as the priorities for the Hawkesbury community for the next term of council?
That's okay. That's okay. That's no problem. Thank you. Everybody knows what I'm fighting for. Number one, once we get in, I'm not saying if, once we get in, my number one priority is to make sure that that we'll get rid of these bureaucrats, these people with no idea in business. They've never been in this area. They never suffered the fire, the drought, the flood. These people have absolutely no idea what we as residents are suffering. They have to be expelled. They have to be sacked, terminate, whatever the term that you want to use it. They have to be out, and we have to bring true professional people into this council, because in the end, council is a business, has to be run by professional people, so we can save money, so we don't have to waste money. We don't have to go through what we already have, $40 million, $2,400 each dwelling, every household. That money has been stolen out of their pay.
Okay, we'll stop there now, but okay, that's fine. But let's also, everybody, stick to the priorities. What do you see as priorities for the Hawkesbury community? Eddie, you've quite right, you said you want to sort the staff, the management, whatever, but Danielle Wheeler, what do you think?
Look, there's lots. As I said earlier, I think we really are at a crossroads. We either define and protect the Hawkesbury as, that we all love, or we just get sucked into Sydney. And I've been saying this for the last 8 years, and never has the juggernaut felt so close. We need to tighten up our planning documents so that we have some protection against the vagaries of the state government and their forever changing plans for the Hawkesbury. We need to have some really hard discussions about the budget and the projects that we have taken on, and whether we can execute all of those projects. I'm talking about the Big West Invest funding projects without having to raise rates. We need to really discuss disaster and climate adaptation to things like flood, fire and heat. We need to talk about cost of living and what levers council can pull to help with cost of living, really basic stuff like vouchers to the pool. for people who can't afford to take their kids for a swim on a hot day. But we also need to have a functioning council that can debate these things openly, rationally and transparently. And there's been a report come out from the state government today talking about how the code of conduct and councils simply are failing our ratepayers.
Yeah, that's good. Fair point. Fair point. That's good. Mayor Lyons-Buckett, what are the priorities as far as you're concerned?
Well, there's many priorities across the Hawkesbury, but the main one is, of course, for us to address those priorities, we have to really build a foundation of a cohesive council where all 12 councillors engage in teamwork and where we're cohesive. And we're 12 people who get to represent. So we need to have that opportunity for each of the 12 to contribute their viewpoints from the people that elected them, to be able to share their skills around and to be able to represent the people. It's something that should be a collegiate sort of thing that we're doing. And within that, we need to then balance the various protections we need to put on things with the opportunities that arise in an ever-evolving technological and growing sort of economy. And we can do all of that, but it takes all of us to contribute in there. We need strong leadership that's going to drive us through the hard times that we are inevitably going to face. And we need to really build the resilience around our communities because we don't know what we're going to be confronted with next.
Yeah, thank you. That's good. Thanks very much. Angela Maguire, if you get onto council, what do you see as the priorities?
My priority is actually probably quite similar to what Mary has articulated, because you can't do anything if you're not working together.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is being truly representative and thinking about how we conduct ourselves as individuals and as a council, how we represent our constituents and how we listen to our community members. And in doing that, we then are able to have a grown-up conversation with our community about the kind of community we want, how we want it to look, how we want it to function, what we think is important. And a big part of that is making sure that we're doing the right thing, where we understand our roles as councillors and we understand the role of council, and we don't sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, there are good people everywhere, but people need to be given the opportunity to demonstrate their value, and a dysfunctional council does not help anybody. So by getting that together, determine what the priorities are, work together and communicate that to residents and members of the Hawkesbury, and it goes both ways. Yeah,
fair enough. That's good. Thank you. We'll come back to Bob Gribbin, because sorry, Bob, I missed you in the list here. So what are your thoughts then? If you got onto council, what do you see as the priorities for the Hawkesbury community?
The financial management. I know of $1 million in grants that was lost. So that's infrastructure that we haven't got. They want to put a 14% SRV in place. We had a 30% one in 2017. They've got to cancel their Netflix account. They've got to do something to start saving costs, because at the moment there just seems to be a lot of wastage. If you get the costs under control, you don't need the SRVs. You can then fund things like the koala plan, because there are other things like that that need to be done. But until you get the money in place and the funding correct, then you can't do anything. They just become aspirations. So let's get the money right, and then we can start to fund the things that the community wants and do it properly.
Yeah,
and I have an opinion on West Invest as well, and Tamplin Field, but we don't need to go into that now.
Fair enough. Okay, it may come up again. You never know. So Nathan, what do you think about this? What would you see as the priorities?
We have so many priorities. You know, in a new term, we need to urgently complete and activate our new LEP and DCP, our two key planning documents that have been shamefully delayed for the entirety of this term by the Liberal and Labor bloc. We have to discuss and write council's finances, because if we don't, we will be facing a $163 million backlog in our infrastructure program within the next 9 years. And then paired with that, we need to reform our rating structures so that our rates are fairer, so that two families on similar incomes and who enjoy similar access to council resources aren't paying 2 or 3 times the amount of rates as another family in the same situation. We need to become a chamber that's more outwardly focused, inclusive of the views of the community, collaborative with one another, not tainted with personal drama, conflicts of interest, party politics, or higher political ambition. We need to prioritise our road funding. We need to restore trust in council, and that trust has been largely destroyed by the current leadership.
Thank you. Oh, you were right on the bell. See, that was good. Okay. Shane Djuric, again, if you get back on council, what do you see as the priorities?
Look, primarily, I think we've got some issues with delivery. We've got issues with service, issues with rapport with the community and functionality. And
that's quite a lot, isn't it?
Well, that's amongst many other things.
Yeah.
But I think the basis for sorting a lot of these things, if not all of them, is starting to bring some maturity to the chamber. And after debate, we need to work together as a block to start delivering for the community.
Good. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Now, so with this next question, we'll go to Danielle Wheeler first. And this is about the proposal to build a $200 million caravan and camping facility on Middle Island, Hermitage Road, Currajong Hills. What is your view of that proposal?
It doesn't belong there. For a whole, I can't think of one good reason why it should go in. It's too big. It's right on the edge of the bush. It's an environmental catastrophe waiting to happen. It's a bushfire catastrophe waiting to happen. It's a traffic disaster. There's the likelihood of being able to get all the vehicles in and out in a timely fashion. When people turn up to drop people off or whatever it is they're going to do in there, it's a terrible proposal. What I propose to do if I'm re-elected is to get the chamber to take a position on the proposal, and for the chamber to then, for the elected body to put in a submission to the planning panel. It's a state planning panel because of the scale of the development, and have us both put in a submission and address the panel to tell them that the elected body doesn't want this for our community. So for us to act as representatives of our community, even though the state government has sought to sideline councils from development applications like this.
That's good. Thank you. That's very interesting. Mary Lyons-Buckett, what do you think about it?
I agree with Danielle. I think it's a complete overdevelopment for what is essentially a very environmentally sensitive area. I have actually seen proposals come up for that particular site a number of times, and in 2014, when I was on council, I've been on there for 12 years. So when it came up then, it was unanimously voted against because there are too many issues around. We've already addressed effluent disposal. It's an issue in those sort of areas. We have no reticulated water or sewer. It's in a really precarious bushfire zone. It runs into a precious network of waterways that run into Weenie Creek and then into the Colo and Hawkesbury rivers. We cannot get people out in an emergency from a location like that. There's many reasons, and I mean the magnitude of it is just too much. Like, it's just so big that it's like transplanting something that is just far too big for the site into an environmentally sensitive area.
Thank you. Bob Gribbin, what do you think about it? I mean, it's a massive proposal. What do you think?
I haven't read anything about it, so, and not being a councillor, I've not been briefed on it.
Well, it's had quite a lot of publicity, to be fair.
Has it?
So, it's been, on local news quite extensively. It has been going on for a long time, but that aside, it's a $200 million in value caravan and camping facility. It is in an environmental, area which could cause some problems. What do you think in general then about that sort of development?
You've got to be extremely careful. It can do more damage than bring any benefit to the community. Just from what I've heard, I think I'd be voting no.
Okay, that's good. Right, thanks for that. And Angela Maguire, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I mean, most of the points have been raised. It's too big, too much in a place that's too sensitive. And we don't have infrastructure to support the people who are here who know that we flood and fire. You want to bring in all of those people who aren't necessarily au fait with the conditions at summertime to have a holiday, and something goes wrong, and you have insufficient infrastructure. It's the height of irresponsibility. It's it is just not good. We still don't have the second crossing of the bridge. How anybody expects all that traffic to be turning from and onto Bell's Line of Road without there being an accident there? It beggars belief. It's really important to me that we, this isn't about NIMBYism, and this isn't about no development, but it is about appropriate development and sympathetic development that preserves what we have, and a responsible and sensible developments.
Yeah, good, thank you. Nathan, what do you think about it?
As it stands, I would vote against it.
Yeah.
But I think that there's another layer that a responsible candidate needs to add to that answer, because otherwise you're just telling people what you think that they want to hear. People need to be better educated about the things that now come to the council chamber for a vote and things that get devolved out to planning panels. Planning panels were introduced by the previous state government in 2017. And despite the expectation of the community that we, their elected representatives, make decisions and are accountable for those decisions, planning panels often take those matters completely out of our hands, and the chamber has no role in we're not a decision-making body. Council staff put together a report. That report merely says whether a development is compliant, not desirable. Whether something is desirable is something that should have been within the province of an elected chamber, but not anymore. It goes out to subject matter experts that might have some expertise in planning, but don't live in the area and are not democratically accountable. What this issue highlights for me is the undemocratic nature of planning panels.
Yeah,
that democracy restored.
Thanks, that's good. There is that, but I suppose also, I mean, this is not a question, but I suppose also there is something in council getting together and pushing against something like this, if that's indeed what councillors decide. You have some power there, right?
Well, I can expand on that and be very brief. Councillor Lyons-Buckett and myself have been very
No.
Yeah, sorry, we'll have to. It's my fault. I shouldn't have brought it up again. But anyway, sorry about that. So Shane, what do you think about it? If you're back on council, is it something that you think is a good thing or a bad thing, or in between?
I'm concerned it's overdevelopment in a sensitive area, but I'm also not getting any support for it from the community.
Yeah, good point. Oh, well, that's a good point, isn't it? Yeah, fair dues. Okay, Eddie, what do you think about this? Is it something that should be go ahead, or something that should be frowned upon? You're muted there. Yeah, you're muted.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. That's all right. All good.
I think that these bureaucrats who are dealing with this matter have already made their decision. Members of the panel, what kind of consultants, what kind of experience do you have in such matters? Have we spoken with those people around that area? We already have 2, 3, 4, 5 areas where people could buy, their drinks, their alcohol, or whatever. Do we have enough parking areas? I mean, which part of the world do these people come from? We don't have the roads. When we were there last night at 4:30, I went and while I could see the road, I counted 127 potholes. And when people, high rollers, start, coming in that area, getting drunk and leaving, that establishment, what kind of problems are they going to cause on that, goat track, I call it. So I'm going to vote no.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Thank you. Right, so the next question is, and then we'll decide who's going to answer first, because I can't remember who did the first one last time. What do you think, so just have a think about this, what do you think are the most effective ways to communicate and educate community on council issues? I think, look, Shane, let's go to you first with this one, because you did, I think I've still missed you out on one before. But anyway, what do you think are the most effective ways to communicate and educate community on council issues?
I think primarily and basically through community consultation with community groups. I think we've gotten away from that. I went into the last council expecting to bring greater consultation in through community groups, and we backed right away from it. It was bizarre, but that's where we're at. And I think that's a good start. Yeah,
okay, that's fine. Thanks. Danielle, can we go to you next on this one? I think also with this thing here, it's about comms and education. also about how media, I suppose, you know, get their messages from council as well, I guess. What's the best way to get the messages out to people? And is it happening at the moment?
The best way to get messages out to people is to go out to people. Yeah, we've become over reliant on social media, which is a short, sharp, divisive method of getting in touch with people. And it might be okay to put, you know, to put a little message out, but for a nuanced discussion about an issue that affects people's lives, it's not great. You know, it was a good stopgap during COVID, but it's time to get back out into the community. And it's time for elected representatives to be brave enough to stand up in front of the community, including on the days when they are cross about something. You know, we can't hide in the chamber and we can't hide on Facebook and expect them to know. We also need to drastically rewrite council's current media policy. The media policy that we have is incredibly restrictive, and puts huge demands on the media, which is, frankly has components that I feel are censorship. We need to start again. We need to go back to the model media policy and take out the bits that were stuffed into our media policy that shut out the media, and allow council to be economical with the information that it sends out.
No, that's good. Sorry, the bell struck. But that very good points, very good points. And on a personal level, the media thing and the way council deals with media is an issue, that's for sure. They're not alone at Hawkesbury, but having experience now at other councils, they're not doing a great job on that. I'm getting the bell now. Okay, so Mary Lyons-Buckett, could you give us your views on this, please?
Thanks, Tony. I think we really need to change the narrative around local government and what it is, because essentially people within the community don't have a very good understanding of it. And what we often see is until people are directly impacted, they don't really take an interest in council. And then our messaging is largely just lost when it's going out through social media. So as Danielle just said, we need to resume our town hall meetings that we used to have. We need to have our committee system working so that from within those committees, the representatives on those are people that filter the information back through the community. So if that's about flood, they'll be going back to their community group and passing it to their members. And then those members will pass it to their neighbours. And we see this connectivity that exists around that when we're doing when we're filtering information out to the community through conduits like that. Then there's the 12 councillors. We currently don't really have a role to take stuff into the community because some of us don't represent at all at any activities or do things like that. So if all 12...
Sorry, that was a loud bell. Okay, so Bob Gribbin, what do you think about this then, and how council should be communicating?
There are a number of different organisations within the community, progress associations and such. They could all put into council, and council could send a representative. There's 12 councillors. And if there were 12 progress associations, they could circle around that and attend one progress association meeting every month. I mean, I get feedback from football, from Pony Club, from, you know, when Wilberforce Pony Club lost their ground, I was blindsided on that. We didn't see that coming. Having just fought to stop the losing the ground to build the centre. But the councillors can get out and go to Progress Association type meetings and start to spread the word of what's happening and take feedback back from the community. I get a lot of feedback from just talking to parents around soccer games, Pony Club, athletics. That's how you get your feedback, face to face.
That's fair enough. Fair point. That's good. Thank you. Angela Maguire, what do you think the most effective ways to communicate and educate community on council issues?
Doing quality engagement is hard and it's expensive. Any council, any energy organisation, people that I've consulted to for years will tell you it is hard slog. Social media is a sugar fix, as Danielle mentioned, and it doesn't. It makes you tick a box, but it's not necessarily meaningful, and it doesn't. When we have a growing digital divide, you cannot assume that everybody has access to a device. and an internet connection at whim and at will to complete a 10-question survey. So that's one part of it.
Yeah, good point.
But the other part of it is that one thing I think one of the challenges we have in the Hawkesbury is that we are very fortunate to have some very well organised and established voices representing certain interests in the community. But what about those people in the community who, for whatever reason, find it very hard to organise, whether it be financial, literacy, they may be disabled. There also have language barriers. And again, if we're going to represent everybody in the community, we can't just listen to the squeaky wheels. We need to be realistic about who the Hawkesbury is made up of and who we're looking to help.
Excellent, good stuff. Thank you. And Eddie, I didn't ask you about this one, I believe. So what do you think are the most effective ways to communicate and educate community on council issues?
You froze. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I think I was just very still for a moment there, but anyway,
okay.
Go on.
Well, start me now.
Yeah, all good.
Well, besides the hardcore labor and loyal liberals and the people that I have met, many hundreds of them, not one single individual said anything good about this council. Full of bureaucrats. They have no idea what these people are doing, what they are suffering. Like we have discussed about the financial failures and the defunct council. No one is going to listen. No one has got any kind of trust into this council. And I'm hoping that both major parties will lose so many seats that we independents, we will get in. When I say independence of myself, independence of Labour and Liberal, and I hope that people with sound brains, with business acumen, that we will start listening people and we will act as their servants, what they want, and we will deliver.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. Look, with this next one, I'll start with, again, please correct me if I'm just, doing the same people first all the time. I think I'm not. But
you didn't ask me the last question.
Oh, there you go.
Or Shane.
There's always one. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so could you talk about that? Yes, absolutely. It'd be a good thing to talk about. Communication, how do you do that?
I'll give you 2 ways in which you don't do it and 2 ways in which you can do it. You don't do it if your leadership declares the local media to be their enemy. You don't do it if the leadership of your council feels such contempt for not only the media, but the local populace, that they won't turn up to a forum like this. And it's very difficult to do it when we conduct what we call traditional engagement, surveys inside your rates notice, the occasional phone poll. And then you discover that you've really only reached between 3 and 5% of the people that would be affected by a particular decision. Now, I've earned a reputation for really reaching out. I have an email newsletter. I'm active on social media. I make explanatory videos, which I feel is an extension of my role as a teacher. And it's like delivering water to a desert. People are so grateful and so eager for that kind of engagement. We need more of that.
Yeah, good. Thank you. That's good. A good answer. Okay, so we'll go to Bob Gribbin for this next one first then. Now, prior to the last election, there was a lot of talk about detached dual occupancy, but nothing since, says one of our questioners. Where do the candidates stand on this and also on large lot subdivision this time around? So, Bob, what do you feel about this then? Do you think it should, well, you tell me what you think.
Yeah. I was in favour before the last election, and at a meeting we had at the Oakville Progress Association, I put it to the then councillors that would they support large lot subdivision, 5 acres down to 1 acre, provided they were all self-contained with envirocycles and water tanks, solar batteries. And from memory, we got favourable nods from Danielle and some of the others that they would support that. So I am in favour of that. That's one of the ways of stopping the government making the decisions for you. And it's up to you. Personally, I wouldn't subdivide. I like my 5 acres, but other people will want to, and so be it. It's their choice. And the same if they want to have an additional dwelling on their property. I don't see the problem with it. You've got 5 acres.
Yeah, fair
Build
enough.
something for the kids.
Yeah.
Don't let the kids build a granny flat and put you in the granny flat and get the good house.
Well, that's another thing, isn't it? Yeah. That's good. Thank you, Angela. What's your take on this? Do you think it should be allowed then, this detached dual occupancy?
I think, like most things, well, I don't have an issue with it in principle. Like anything, though, it has to be done in such a way that is sympathetic to the environment, that doesn't put undue stress on infrastructure, and isn't sort of subdivision by stealth in areas that we don't want to have subdivided.
Yeah.
But like anything, it can be done if, you know, the right minds are in the right place and you can have a fruitful conversation. And going back to what has been mentioned time and again here tonight, having those plans and documents and pieces of information that you need to be able to make the decisions that are informed and represent what the community wants.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Nathan, I know we're coming back to you soon this time because we missed you before. So what do you think about it then?
I've been very vocal about this, and I was looking forward in our new LEP to have a greater degree of flexibility about granny flats, detached dual occupancies, secondary dwellings. It makes absolutely no sense that somebody on a small house block in Hobartville or Bligh Park already has the ability to have a granny flat, but that somebody living on an acreage property at Yarramundi or Currajong or Oakville does not have that right. All of our adjacent LGA partners have brought themselves up to speed to permit this because there are so many social benefits. It lets a detached dual occupancy allows parents to give a leg up to their kids and give them a toehold in the real estate market. It allows families who want to look after their elderly parents with a degree of independence and dignity in their senior years. It is so shameful that our LEP was delayed. It could have been our active document by now, except it was pulled back by the Labor and Liberal bloc for more work without ever actually specifying what that extra work was. It is an absolute priority for the new chamber to get on with this and to bring in this benefit, which may also act as a bulwark against a more intensive subdivision, and it will give people choice.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. That's a good, really good, a comprehensive answer there. Excellent. Shane Djuric, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I'm definitely for it. I've always been for greater rights for the individual homeowner, specifically for this sort of reason. People need to help house their parents. Sometimes they need to help house their children. So I'm definitely for that. I think we need to be careful around, like Angela said, with stealth subdevelopment. But as it stands, I think, I'm very pro for that. Yep.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. And Eddie Douglas-Martin, what are your views on this?
Certainly, I'm all for it, as long as it's a sustainable development. And people have land, some of them, have acquired that, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And some of them, they, when their parents, passed away, they started occupying. And what's wrong with them? We've got name it from Maryland to Auburn to every single one of the suburbs that I have visited. They do have granny flats. What's wrong with these people? Again, it's the major parties, for whatever the reason is, that they just say they have to say no. They have to just put some kind of a barrier in front of us. Why not?
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Solar panels. They just went crazy. Yes, I'm all for it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Danielle Wheeler, can you tell us what your thoughts are?
So, look, I wouldn't make a blanket statement in support of large lot subdivision, particularly west of the river, because we don't have the services to deal with it. We particularly don't have the road linkages to deal with it. Oakville, I think, is a different case because of its proximity to the northwest growth sector, and that I think needs to be considered as a different issue. The detached dual occupancy, Nathan has talked about the LEP. There's a history here, and I don't want to be the one that uses up my minute because I keep having to go first from the from the current councillors explaining the history of this. But it's a state government ban. This is not a council decision. It's a state government blanket ban because of flood evacuation on rural areas. So I walked around Bligh Park letterboxing on the weekend, stacks of granny flats. That's a piece of state legislation called a SEP that allows them to have that, and it overrides council's planning documents. The state planning document, but the state has banned detached dual occupancy. Secondary dwellings, tiny houses, all of these have a role in the affordable housing mix and in the benefits of multi-generational housing as well. And council really does need to consider these, but we need those planning documents through first.
Yeah, good, thank you. Mary Lyons-Buckett, what are your thoughts?
Tony. Thanks, Tony. Yes, I do support detached dual occupancy and have done so. There was an issue with it back in about 2014 or 2015 when people wanted it across the entire area, and it was rejected in an amendment, a planning proposal amendment back then because of flood constraints. So when it's been done this time, it's in our LEP. As everybody has said already, that LEP has been delayed for no explanation ever given to us, really, or no apparent reason. And had that been in, then what I have been hearing, which is about people who've been told to demolish internal walls on a second building on their property when we've got a housing crisis and someone is living in it, is a really, really big problem that we have to deal with. So we need that LEP to be completed as soon as possible. That is not a feasible response for council to be taking, because had it not been delayed by the Liberal and Labor Party, then we would have had that probably in place by now. So that was a really bad decision that was made back then. I do think we have to have constraints around it. We have to be careful that we're not going to put them in areas where they're going to generate problems. And of course, we have to consider that generally we speak about family members living on them, but sometimes it will be other people and there could be problems associated with that. So careful planning around it, and then I think it should be able to proceed.
Yeah, good. Thank you. That's great. Okay, we'll go on to the next question, and I think I've got my system working now. This one to Angela Maguire, first of all. Why did the residents, I mean, look, just see if you can answer this one. It's specific to Upper Colo. Why did the residents of Upper Colo receive a letter saying that the funding had been approved for the long-awaited ceiling of Upper Colo Road, and it was to be completed in the 23-24 financial year, and then it never happened? Some of this might be difficult if you're not actually on council at the moment, I'm guessing, but no, fair enough.
Look, I don't know the answer to that question, but it is clear as a bell, clear as day, or whatever phrase you want to use, the road situation throughout the entire Hawkesbury. I drive Grosvale Road every day, and that's enough to give anybody, shake anybody's teeth loose. Who, you know, it is a huge problem. How it is addressed, I don't know, but it has to be addressed. And we need to advocate, because they're not all of our roads, you know, state roads that, and again, people don't necessarily want to hear that. I understand. They see government and want it to work. And again, we have a massive geographic space. We have a relatively small rate base to look after those roads that we're responsible for. So how we do that effectively, how we lobby state and federal governments to help us. And again, when we're consistently flooding and you fix a road and as soon as you fixed it, it's washed out again. I mean, it's a living nightmare, but it's something that we have to tackle.
Yeah, fair enough. That's great. Nathan, what do you think about this?
Look, there are a number of very worthy road projects, including that one that have been delayed for one reason or another. The good news that I have for the asker of that question is that Upper Colo Road has been allocated $1,568,750 in the 2024-25 budget.
Okay, but it was to be completed apparently in the 23-24 financial year. Then it
That's
never
correct.
happened.
And there were a number of projects that were delayed because of a variety of reasons. In many cases, our Director of Infrastructure tells me that it is not a lack of money. It's a lack of physical resource. It's a lack of qualified contractors that are going to do a quality job, that have access to the aggregate and bitumen and material that they need. And we are not the only council in this situation. I recognise that situation is very frustrating for locals, because they receive these promises from council and then council are laggardly in their delivery on those promises. But I can tell you that that money is in the budget.
Right. Okay. Well, fingers crossed then this time. So Shane, what's your sort of thoughts on this?
Not entirely sure, except for the fact we've got to stop declaring we've got to do these roads and not doing them.
Well,
Council
right.
tried to do the same thing for Packer Road, but the council's aligned on sorting that out. If we say we're going to do something, we need to do it. But yeah, I have heard the story about lack of able people to do the job, but they've been saying that for quite a while. You think we'd have come to a solution by now?
Yeah, look, I have to say, I drive around regional New South Wales a lot, and I see the roads being repaired. So I don't know, you know, anyway. Let's ask some other people. Eddie, what do you reckon about this then? What about the residents of Upper Colo?
Sure. Again, as a salesman, I'll tell you, you only get what you pay for. Telling us that the council has got the money, rubbish. They wasted $40 million and they wasted they borrowed $32.5 million, which our children and grandchildren are going to pay $1.9 million for the next 20 years. Do they mean that the people in America, in Europe, in England, you know, they are more intelligent than our contractors? Rubbish. We've got the people. It's just, you know, they are penny pinching. They are looking for the tenders, the cheapest one, and you only get what you pay for. Of course, just spend some time in America, see how they do it. When they do it for life. And when it comes, you know, to the other roads, like I said, you only get what you pay for. Pay peanuts and you'll get monkeys.
Well,
basically, there we go. That's what it is.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, Danielle, what are your thoughts about this? I remember when I was working as a journalist in this area, you and I and several other people went up to Upper Colo to speak to people there for a story that I was doing. What do you think about the deal they're getting there or not getting?
Look, it's been a really torrid time, I think, with roads, and we've really been stretched. We had a backlog of roads infrastructure before we were heavily repeatedly flooded, and then there's been knock-on impacts from that as well. So it's not just Upper Colo Road. This, I think, though, speaks to communication and it speaks to expectation management as well. You know, and one of the difficulties is that you can't tell people you're going to do something and then not do it. You know, and Packer Road that Shane mentioned was a classic example. You know, we went out in 2017 and told the people of Lower Portland that we would seal Packer Road if there was a rates rise. We got the rates rise, and then some people tried to renege on sealing Packer Road, and we had a packed gallery objecting to it. People shouldn't have to come to council and object and force our hand. If we say we're going to do something, we should do it. But we do need to tighten up how we manage our roads. There's good information online now. We really need to upskill, though, and have more local road crews so that we're not put off by we're not just put on the never while we wait for contractors, and we compete with projects like the airport, which leave us on the back burner all the time.
Yeah, fair, very good points. Thanks. Mary Lyons-Buckett, what do you think about this then?
I do think I do feel for the community of Upper Colo. They've suffered a lot because they had their bridge out for so long. And I know for many people that meant a massive drive around and a lot of inconvenience. And I think that we need to prioritise promises that are going to alleviate that sort of suffering that people have had. And I hope we do that as soon as possible. I think that also I actually brought a motion in which I wanted us to have localised road crews in our more remote areas, such as St Albans and Upper Colo, so that when things needed to be done, we could have them done without this forever being told that we have to wait to find contractors. We also need more traineeships and apprenticeships within council, so we're building our own people. We do own equipment, and we have an asphalt batching plant in South Windsor, and it wants to increase its hours. So we could be getting resources locally. We could be having locally trained and locally employed people to be going out and doing it, instead of always relying on trying to find contractors, who we know that we haven't always had the best contractors come and do a job, and we've seen roads having to be redone, and that isn't a good way to be spending ratepayers' money. So hopefully for the Upper Colo people, I hope you get the road sealed soon.
Yes, good, thank you. Bob Gribbin, what do you reckon? You're not in council yet, that's fair enough, but what do you think should be done?
I think it comes back down to financial management. There was a commitment made and money put aside to build the road. I understand things can go wrong. You can't get the resources and things might have to slip, and people understand that. But delaying it another year, it's going to cost more than what it was going to cost in 2023 or 2024. Will they still have the money to afford to be able to do it?
Yeah.
How do you start prioritizing things and putting priorities on importance? And one of the levers in project management is you've got schedule, scope, and funds, right? You can play with any of them. You may not be able to play with the funds. Therefore, you have to look at the scope and the schedule of when you're going to do it. It's just basic management 101, and it's missing all over the place.
Yeah, fair enough. So you focus on that a bit if you get in council. Yeah, good.
That's where most of the problems are.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, let's move on to the next question. And I've got Nathan down here as the first person to answer this. This is about harnessing heritage and rural assets. What efforts to enable the harnessing of our heritage and rural assets can be made to bring value to the Hawkesbury, local businesses and council coffers?
I spent 5 years on council's heritage committee, serving alongside Councillor Wheeler, who currently serves as its very effective chair. And I am committed to preserving the Hawkesbury's heritage. The project in Windsor Mall would be a good example. The early design briefs that we received about revamping Windsor Mall would have resulted in what I call the Westfieldisation of the mall. The street furniture that was being proposed was not consonant with our heritage. They were going to replace sandstone curbing with concrete curbing. They were going to get rid of the graceful notes that I think, you know, made our heritage in Windsor so pleasant. And, you know, it's only through the repeated intervention of the chamber that we've kind of corrected that. And we've now got a plan in Windsor that I think is more reflective of our heritage. So I'll leave my answer there.
Yeah, good. Thank you. That's good. Shane Djuric, you've been involved in a few of these heritage issues. What do you think about this? What efforts to enable the harnessing of this can be made to bring value?
I think for a start, council got to have an appetite to want to do this, and if we have an appetite, there's plenty we can do. There's grants for highlighting our history and tourism and bringing tourism into for our agritourism farms and enjoying our heritage. And getting the word out there that we've got such lovely heritage. And I think there's been some changes and we're starting to get a bit more of an appetite. Some of the younger councillors maybe didn't think so much of our history. Patrick, I don't want to denigrate Patrick, but Patrick was more into the modern stuff, but I think there's more of a drive now for our heritage and pushing that, and I think there's plenty we can do.
That's good. Yeah, thank you. Eddie, what would you do about this thing?
Well, I am all for heritage, of course. This is for the next generation. This is for tourists to come in here. No other council has got what we have in this area. But again, some silly decisions are made downstairs by the management, I think by the management. And, they prepare, all those plans and everything. And everybody will agree with me. And in certain area, and many, many times, they have made the decision and they submitted to us to okay it. I support anything for the heritage. I will support, but these people, have to come down and see, what's happening. We want to bring tourists. We want to bring people, to see, what we have in Hawkesbury, and yet, they are removing the car parking spots, with flower beds. I mean, elderly people, coming in here. How are they going to park around this area, to go around and see, what we have as heritage, parking in Maguire Park and some other places, walking with walking sticks or whatever it is to bring money in. So, but I'm all for it. I will support whatever I could do for the heritage.
Excellent. Thank you. Danielle Wheeler, you played a big part in heritage, as Nathan says, on the committee there. What do you think about heritage and its importance and value?
So the Hawkesbury's in in a really unique position where we have this incredibly concentrated heritage, and it's not just, you know, that Macquarie era heritage that we often think about when we think about the Hawkesbury. There's very strong First Nations heritage. There's also some really important First Contact era heritage where, you know, the first settlers made contact with Aboriginal Australians. There's also the pre-Macquarie heritage, and we're only just learning about some of that through the work of Jan Barclay Jack. And then there's also some really interesting stuff in the between the wars years and the soldier settlements and those sort of things. So it's an incredibly rich and diverse heritage offering. There's probably 4 components. We need to protect it. That's listings, and making people aware of those different areas of heritage that are all important. It's not just Macquarie that's important. We need to conserve it. That's grants, information, education, heritage offices that people can get further information from. Yeah. We need to value it. So the Heritage Committee has proposed repeatedly now a Heritage Award system and a Heritage Festival. I can't get the funding for it. And then we need to promote it. And that's a shared role between, you know, council, community groups, heritage item owners and caretakers, and businesses. But in order for people to come and look at our heritage and want to really experience it, it has to be clean. Our town centres have to be clean, walkable, accessible, and beautiful. And we're not providing that at this point. Yeah, and I want to pick up on that idea that about with.
Oh, they muted you. They muted you. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's some furfies flying around here, Tony, that really need to be addressed.
No, fair enough. We'll see if we can get onto that as we go through, because we don't have that long left, unfortunately. Mary, what do you think about this and harnessing our heritage?
Well, I think we can harness it much better than we have done for many years. But also, I think firstly, we really need to define who we are and why we're trying to really retain a rural and First Nations and European heritage all in one. And we have wonderful rural heritage, and I don't want that to ever be discarded. We've just completed a study on slab barn huts, and we see slab barns rather, and we see many of those out that have fallen down on rural properties. We need to ensure their protection. We have our European heritage, of course, in all our various townships, and we need to focus on what is really of value. We can't be tied up with things that aren't genuine heritage. We saw the very sad loss of the integrity of Thomson Square when we had a big concrete bridge put through the middle of it, and so therefore we have to protect what else is there. And within the mall areas and down through Windsor through its main street, what's really valuable are those beautiful buildings. And we need to encourage people to really look after those and to preserve those. And hopefully we'll get the momentum that people will do those up and that we'll have them as showcases. That's what people come to see. They come to see what things were like. We've, of course, got the Australiana Pioneer Village, which has examples of heritage throughout, our early years. And that's something that people come regularly and really enjoy. So I think maintaining the rural heritage is as important as maintaining the town heritage as well.
Excellent. That's good. Thank you. Bob, what do you reckon about the heritage and the value of it?
When I moved out here in 1986, you'd go down to Windsor on a Saturday morning and there was tourist buses.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a tourist bus for I don't know how long. We could be bringing those back to show people the heritage that we've got. We could combine it with the koala study to take people up to where the koalas are and give them the opportunity to see if they can go koala spotting in trees. I did it as a kid in Port Macquarie.
Yeah,
right? There's a lot of things you can do, right? You look at Thomson Square. We lost that to a bridge. The bridge goes underwater when it floods. They can't even build the bridge right. If you're going to destroy the square and put a bridge in, put a proper bridge in, right? Don't destroy things by half. Do it properly.
Or a bypass even.
Or a bypass. That will be novel. But something that doesn't go under the water every time it floods and then disadvantages people. But there's a lot of opportunity with the heritage that we can use to bring more tourists back, to get more people here and lift. I mean, Windsor's dead. You need to bring it back to life. That can bring it back to life.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, Yeah, that's good. That's good. Good point. Angela, what do you think?
I think a lot of the points have been raised about, you know, of course I support
Yeah.
our physical heritage and our rural heritage for all the reasons. It's important to know, you know, where we've come from as a community, what we can use to support and to have economic activity and other things as well. But Tony, I'm going to stuff you up. Danielle, you had some furphies that you wanted to address. Do you want to use my time and do that now?
Look at you taking over here, Angela. Yeah, no, go on, do that actually, because you know we've not got that long left. I'm not going to give you all that time, obviously, but yeah, go back to that, Danielle, if you would, because it was interesting.
Well, there's a few, and one of them is the furphy about Windsor Mall. So
Yeah.
those designs where people are talking about ripping out sandstone and putting in concrete, they were never going to happen. The gas lamps being removed, the water wheel being removed, the mall being opened up, none of those things were on the table. I led the working group that looked at those they were concept plans, and we sent, I mean, there was one daft thing with a great big hand in the middle of it. We sent them straight back to the designers and said, we're not having this. So none of those things were going to happen. Yeah, and the previous council had quite rational decisions about what was going to happen in Windsor Mall, and then it became a basically populist nonsense, where we've now ended up in a spot where we have $18.5 million for those town centre revitalisation projects. We've spent all but about $5,000. The bulk of that money came from the state and federal government. $3.5 million was from council, $7.5 million from the state and federal governments each. We've been threatened with losing all that money because we can't complete the Windsor Mall because we keep changing our minds. So we've had this paver and that paver, some other paver, gas lamps, not gas lamps that we can't afford to run. It's just, there needs to be some solid leadership and a decent pathway forward.
Excellent. That's good. All right. Thank you. Okay. This will be, I think, our last one. And Shane, we'll start with you. How do you plan to maintain the implementation of the Disability Inclusion Action Plan?
How do I plan to maintain it?
Yes.
Well,
to keep it going, I assume that means.
Oh, we just got to, well, there's got to be an appetite for it. It's something we've got to have. It's something we need. And we need to do as much as we can to implement better features for disability.
Yeah, fair enough. What do you think about that, Eddie?
Well, like I said, everything has to be managed professionally. Like I said at the beginning, very, very beginning, you cannot bet on a donkey in Melbourne Cup. So horses for courses has to be managed properly. It's not a magic wand that, you know, you will say this is it's going to be happen or this is this way or what. People have to sit down and without wasting any time, without forming a group, a committee and the subcommittee, and then make a decision and then refer it to somebody else who'd never been in that position. We have to work and act like, you know, practical, like, you know, professionally.
Right. Yeah. Good. Okay. That's good. Danielle, what do you think about this? Well, how do you plan to maintain the implementation of the Disability Inclusion Action Plan? I'm not sure that's the best way to put it, but anyway.
Well, I don't think we are maintaining it, is the short answer, not from what I saw on the weekend. So I was out letterboxing in Windsor on Saturday for my sins, and I was stopped by a mutual friend of Mary and mine, who's a man with a visual impairment, and he wanted to show me the street trees and the footpaths that council has recently installed that are a trip hazard, particularly for people with a visual impairment. And they're only going to get worse as the mulch deteriorates. We've just done this. You know, this isn't something from 10 years ago that we've got to fix up. We did this in the last 2 months. So it's no point having a plan if no one's getting the plan out and walking down the street with it. We need to put the Access and Inclusion Committee back in place. We need to be benefiting from the expertise of people with lived experience of disability, So in everything that council does, this isn't something that we talk about when we talk about one specific thing. It needs to be an across the board. And then everything we do has to allow accessibility for everybody. Because if you make it accessible for people with a disability, you make it accessible for people with prams, for young families, for people with an injury, for older people. It's just safer and better across the board.
Yeah, good points. Good points. That's great. Mary Lyons-Buckett, what do you think about this?
I agree with that. And I say this about any single plan we've got or any strategy is if we're not implementing it, then it's absolutely useless. And what we have to do is we have to work out how we get the resources to be able to implement these things. But many of the things Danielle just spoke about, and I also was speaking to same friend about the same issues, that we just have to listen to people, and many of those things can go in regular maintenance. They don't have to be a specific task. So for example, the tactile things on the road that help visually impaired people to know where the dangers are or to help them navigate their environment, we have to make sure they're clean so that they're felt by people. We have to make sure that we could look at the disability parking spots, which aren't necessarily near things that people who use them actually want to access. So they need to be near doctors, they need to be near pharmacies or where people are going to. And we're not putting any thought into that. We base things on statistics or ratios around things like that, where really we should be looking at where is the greatest need for this particular thing. But overall, we have to make sure things are allocated or programs are set up where there's a regular monitoring and maintenance of things that need to be done to give us that sort of level of accessibility and inclusion, and definitely bring back the committee. There's nothing better than hearing from the people who know they're living that life.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you. Bob, what do you think about this?
We have to. I mean, you have to make it so those people can live their lives. If they can live their lives, they become more independent. They're less of a, sounds callous, but they're less of a drain on the economy because they can get on with their lives and get stuff done and feel like a normal person, right? We should also be looking for inclusion opportunities within businesses, right? If you hire a 22-year-old and you've got them for 6 months, you're probably doing well. If you hire someone with a disability, you've probably got them for 5 years because they're not going to be, they'll be grateful you've given them a job and they will give you loyalty. There's a lot of good things can come out of engaging with the disability sector, and we should do more of it.
Yeah, fair points. Okay, that's good. Angela, what are your thoughts on this?
Thanks, Tony. Look, I concur with most of what everybody here has said, but I think it is certainly part of the, if you make it accessible for one, you make it accessible for all.
Yeah.
And if we can all contribute, and fundamentally, we're aging in place. We're staying alive for longer, and we need those supports, and, you know, without dobbing them in completely, you know, living with older parents and just mobility issues, trip hazards, you know, of just you know, you just get through getting toddlers and young children from not, you know, tipping hot water on themselves and burning them, and now I'm worried that everything's a trip hazard for my parents. So it's for everybody's benefit, and it's not tokenistic, and it's not indulging a certain part of the population to make us feel better. It's practical, it's sensible, it's economical.
Yeah, good. Nathan, your thoughts on this?
I proceed from the following premise. Everybody deserves to live their lives in dignity, and if people need help, they should be given it. In my profession, teaching, we go to enormous lengths to accommodate students that have particular difficulties in accessing learning equitably. And beyond that, I defer to the expertise of others, and I support any measure that council can put in place to ensure that
that's good
is executed.
Yeah, it's good. It's absolutely true, isn't it? We all get older is one thing, right? So we need to cater for people, and obviously people with disabilities as well. Okay, look, we have got up to our allotted time, so we'll carry on just briefly, but we'll see how we go, because they do tend to just cut off, don't they, these things? Look, let's do this one. I'm going to pick one of these remaining questions out. I know, they're giving me the bell. Okay, Eddie, let's ask you first. What is your opinion on public consultation and members of the public on council committees? Should members of the public be on them? I mean, we need more committees really as well.
You know that I'm
Okay.
I'm
We'll
all
do
against.
this one, and then I'm afraid I've been told we've got to stop. So Eddie, just give us a quick one on this.
Yeah, I'm all against, you know, that kind of committees. I mean, who are you going to bring them in? You know, some brain surgeon, you know, telling us, you know, how to grow turf. I don't know. Well, like I said, horses for courses. We have to bring, you know, more professional people actually being in that kind of business that they think that, you know, they are going to benefit. They are going to give their expertise, you know, to the people.
Excellent. All right. So look, what we'll do then is we'll wrap it up now because we have reached the end of the allotted time. Thank you ever so much for taking the time, because I know, you know, it's 2 hours, it's quite a long time, but you've really answered the questions well. Mary, yes.
Are we going to get a copy of the questions that have been asked so we could answer them, please? The ones on the Q&A, because we haven't had time to.
Yes, yes, I don't think that'll be a problem at all. Definitely.
I have a quick question, Tony, if I may. Can you tell me that?
Oh, look.
Or have you invited them as well, or what was their excuse?
Sorry, say that again.
Have you invited the other councillors, you know, to come and give their opinions? And have they refused it? Have they refused it or just ignored?
It's a fair question. We have asked, of course, all of the candidates, all of the groups to appear, and there are some that haven't, as you know, the Liberals and Labour primarily. We've asked them, several of us have asked them. We've been on their website. We've tried everything we can. And I believe that the Liberals then eventually said that they would come on, but it was way after the deadline, and we don't move the deadline, right? I don't know.
And Labour? And Labour?
I think just no answer, quite frankly. Certainly they didn't, but we didn't hear anything back.
So they're not appearing.
No, but anyway, let me just wrap it up now, though. But look, the point is, it's good that you've come on. Thanks for your time. And what I would say to people who are watching is, you know, when you're thinking about who you're going to vote for, obviously you've got some insight this evening, which is good. I personally would be thinking twice about voting for people who haven't turned up, right? It's an open forum, it's a public forum. So, but obviously that's up to you folks who are watching. But look, thank you. I think it's been really, really valuable. You've all come up with some really good things. You know, every one of you. It's great. So thanks very much for that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
No, it's all right. And good luck as well. Good luck.
It's been a very positive experience, Tony. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's an example, isn't it, of people getting together and talking and not disagreeing, you know, vehemently, but having different points of view sometimes. It's good. That's what we should accommodate, surely. So, yeah, brilliant. Very good.
I hope people will wake up.
Well, there you go. But anyway, good luck to everybody. And
yeah, see you all at pre-poll.
Yeah, see you on Saturday. Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
See you then.
See ya.
Thank you.